guys, Ranger Georgie here with U.S. Fish and Wildlife from Laguna Atascosa National Wildlife Refuge in partnership with the city of Brownsville. Thank God we got ourselves a nice little piggy. We're gonna go ahead and show you guys how to gut, skin, quarter, put it on ice, hopefully make some sausages.
You'll be needing two tools for this section: the butt out 2 and a good knife. I'm using the Outdoor Edge replaceable blade. So the first thing you're going to want to do is, with the butt out, put it into the anal cavity of your harvest and twist, either left or right, until you feel a good amount of resistance, not too much as you can rip the anal cavity. Now go ahead and pull out, and you'll be pulling out quite a bit of its rectum. For the gut section of this video, the first thing you're going to want to do is make an insertion near the anal cavity. Split it into a Y, as you do not want this area to touch your meat, and it'll add for good grip later. Now with your knife, go ahead and make your insertion towards the chest cavity. Continue working your way all the way up. The cut that I'm making right now is on top of the fat. I like for my first cut to be superficial, as it helps me stay along the line. Once you've exposed a good amount of the fat with your superficial cut, go ahead and continue working down towards the intestines. Be careful, as the stomach lining is just past that decent layer of fat. Now there is a division inside of the chest cavity. It divides the intestines, the stomach lining, along with everything else, protecting the heart, the lung, the liver. Go ahead and grab as high up as you can, close to the esophagus, and pulling out. You'll notice everything kind of pulls out with it. The heart, the lungs, everything that you want. Now on the bottom side, be sure that you're pulling out very carefully. You want to completely pull out the rest of the remaining rectum that's inside of the animal. Once it's all out, don't forget there's still good stuff that you could eat inside that pile. The heart, for one, is my favorite. Now that the gutting section is over, you're going to want to hang your harvest. To do this, you're going to make insertions on the back legs, right in between the tendon. The tendon is extremely visible whenever it's relaxed. So now we're going to start skinning. The method I use, I try to make sure that none of the hair gets onto my meat. The best way to do this is by inserting the knife in an upward angle facing outside of your keel. So you're going to be putting it in between the meat and the hide and working your way out. This is going to be best to make sure that no hair or debris gets on your harvest. The next good tip that you can have, if you have trouble gripping your hide, go ahead and make a hole. And you'll be seeing me do this throughout the video, as it's a technique that I use a lot. With your knife, go ahead and work your blade in between the hide and the meat. As you do this, you'll be skinning the animal in a downward motion. The goal is to work from top to bottom. Now that you're near the anal cavity, go ahead and make sure all that skin is flipped back. Now you can see that your tail is exposed. Go ahead and cut that bone off and continue pulling it down. All right, so we're gonna do the exact same thing on the opposite leg. You'll notice that In this leg, I'm going to use the knife cutting in towards the meat around the shank. This is the only time that your blade should be doing this. Now that both legs have their skin pulled down, go ahead and grip the hide wherever you can and yank down. It's a fresh harvest, so this should be rather easy. If you notice, I continuously make holes to get more grip. Now that you're near the chest cavity, go ahead and make an incision and work your way down superficially towards the neck. Before I continue cutting the rest of the hide, you're going to want to make cuts all around what you're not going to keep. These hooves are staying here. You can't eat them. I don't want them. If you notice with this hog, even at the shoulders, I'm still able to pull down. The reason being, this is a female harvest. You would not be able to do this with the male, as they have a shield to protect them during their fights. So now that we have the hide down exactly where we want it, we're going to go ahead and make another insertion on the front legs following the natural line of the mammal itself. Here you can see the exit wound. Be careful as all the meat around it is tainted. You don't want to take it home, so go ahead and be sure that you're cutting around it. Now that the hide is already as far down as can go, this is where you're going to go ahead and separate what you're going to discard into the monte and what you're going to take home in your ice chest to eat later on. If you have water available to you, go ahead and rinse out the cavity, making sure all that blood just continues to wash out. The tools you'll be using for the quartering section is a good knife and a saw. With the handsaw starting at the chest cavity, go ahead and work your way towards the neck, dividing your mammal into two parts. The next cuts we'll be making are on the top of the flanks. So you're going to go ahead and cut down towards the spinal cord. Now dividing your mammal into four groups: top left, top right, bottom right. The first quarter we're going to be taking away are the front shoulders. Use your knife by following the ribs closely if you want more meat on the shoulders, but if you want more meat on the ribs, do it the opposite way around. Follow your knife as closely to the shoulder as possible. This is all going to be turned into ground, so my cuts really don't matter. Before we put this in the ice chest, we're going to remove the hoof. Now go ahead and expose the knuckle with your knife, cut around it, similar to where you could see a chicken leg attached to the thigh. Rip that apart. If you need a little help, go ahead and use your knife. One down, a few more to go. Go ahead and do the exact same thing to the opposite side. The next cut we're going to be doing is taking off the ribs. If you've noticed, I left the tenderloins as well as the back strap still on. The reason I'm doing this is I'm actually cutting through a good amount of the back strap. My goal is to make French cut style ribs later on. With the handsaw, continue working your way down till the ribs are completely separate from the spinal cord. Now I'll be removing the back strap on the side that I didn't cut. So what you're going to want to do is get your knife, follow along the spinal cord. It's very similar to getting a fillet off of a fish. You'll notice this has natural lining, so go ahead and use your knife to follow along those lines. Be sure that you're skipping right along the bones that are still there. Now these ribs look a little bit less meaty, but we're still taking them home. Nothing goes to waste. Now I'm gonna wanna leave all this meat on the bone. Don't think it's going to waste. Later on, I'm gonna make a great stock out of this. And I do want some of that meat on there. It adds a lot better flavor. So go ahead and remove the whole spinal cord. The only thing left now is your hind legs. When you're cutting around the hind leg, go ahead and make sure the knife is in between the joint and the pelvic bone. Continue working your way through. Once you expose all that beautiful meat, there you go. Cuts off like a dream. Continue working the hide off of the hind, as we weren't able to in the beginning section because that's where it was being hung from. Once you expose the joint, go ahead and cut right through it and it'll be really easy to take off. You don't want to struggle, get the saw. Now being that there's no more counterweight, we're gonna have to work on this last piece on the ice chest. This incision I'm gonna make a little bit higher than the knuckle because I know these bones are gonna be used to make stock and I wanna release all the flavor that the marrow has to offer. Now I'm going to want to take this pelvic bone home because this is going to make a great broth. When I get home, I'm going to be sure to cut all around it, leaving a decent amount of meat on that bone. And that's it, guys. A whole piggy sitting on ice. Till next time.